So next up, I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker. Dan Kerrigan is co-author of the best-selling book, Firefighter, Functional Fitness, and a member of the IAFC SHS Board of Directors, an international speaker on firefighter health and wellness. He is a 36-year veteran of the fire service, serving in positions from firefighter through fire chief. His tenure includes time in volunteer, combination, and career organizations of varying size and complexity, and it includes extensive experience in operations, administration, risk reduction, health and wellness, emergency management, research, training, and professional development. So, busy man.
Yeah.
Welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks. I just want to echo what everybody else has been saying. First of all, it's an honor and a pleasure to be invited to speak here among so many of my peers and colleagues in the fire service. So, when I was asked to present here, they said, this 11 steps to creating a culture of fitness in the fire service seems like a great fit for it. Actually, it's more like 15 or 16 steps now, so we're continually adding. I don't know if that's good or bad, but so I said, sure. I said, that's usually anywhere from about a 2 to 3 to maybe even a 4-hour presentation. And so how much time will I have? And they said, you have 30 minutes. Good luck. We're all counting on you, right? So here I am. So I'm hoping that you'll bear with me as I kind of go through this stuff pretty quickly so that we can keep on track. Is anybody else as depressed as I am, by the way? All we've talked about all morning is what we can't eat and what we can't drink anymore, so I think we could probably all lead by example, and maybe we could form some little small hurt feelings work group sessions and share our feelings at the break about all the things that we have to not eat and drink anymore, right? So a lot of this stuff was born out of the book that was mentioned that we wrote. Incidentally, I have to do this to Sarah. I knew her before she was famous, and Sarah actually wrote the foreword in our book. So, that's none of my business, but look at her now, right? So we're really interested in trying to help not only individual fire service members and really public safety members at large in bettering themselves, but also from an organizational perspective as well, how we can help get organizations, both large and small, career, volunteer, to be a little bit better at what they're doing in terms of health and wellness for their people. And that may be starting a program, or it may be adding to a program, or maybe enhancing it or whatever. But step one really comes down to personal accountability and positive peer pressure. So there's a lot of different discussions that I've had with a lot of different people about whose responsibility is it for us to be fit and healthy, right? And some folks will like to put it all on a department or an agency. Others will be on the other end of the spectrum and say it's absolutely, my responsibility and that's it. I kind of am of the opinion that it's really all of our responsibility, right? When we're in a fire service in America that really doesn't have any mandate for wellness, fitness, or anything like that we have to follow, that it's going to take all of us, from the individual to the department level to the chiefs, to make this change. So this is where we really need to come together as groups and as individuals and lead that change by example, right? And our friend Jake Rhodes, he said this a long time ago, and it's stuck with me ever since, for all of us chiefs in the room, that we are not exempt from the shalls, right? We have to lead and show our folks in our departments that we're a part of this as well, and that we're not just asking you to do something that we're not willing to do ourselves. So it's time to step up for all of us, really, and that accountability starts with us, and it hopefully can be pervasive throughout the organization. And we talk about fitness, and we talk a lot about this across the country in the different fire departments that we go to, and it's important that everybody understands that term, I think, is a little bit pigeonholed, if you will. So it's not just about working out, right? And we've already heard a lot of great information, so I won't spend too much time on this, but fitness is a comprehensive approach, right? It's lifestyle, it's a holistic approach to how we take care of ourselves, not just in when we're in the gym, but also in what we're putting in our bodies, right? And how much water we're drinking, and our sleep and rest and recovery habits, understanding our risk factors, especially as they specifically pertain to us as firefighters. And it's so all of that combined, if you will, along with the behavioral health stuff and the cancer prevention, that's a package deal for us. We can't just go to the gym and say we're fit. Okay, and so, you know, we have to, again, I put this up here kind of as a little bit of a joke, right? This is the last thing we need to hear after we're not allowed to drink beer anymore and we're not allowed to eat anything out of a box or a bag, right? But really, we have to set that example in everything that we do, you know? And we could go into lots of different ways to promote that, but, you know, one of the biggest things out of the whole nutrition aspect is that if you're in a firehouse and you cook meals, you have a tremendous opportunity to help your fellow firefighters get healthy, because if you're cooking, you're kind of controlling what most of them are eating, are you not? So rather than just talking about getting in the gym 8 days a week, 27 hours a day, and, you know, trying to be as high performing as we can, let's also talk about how we can help each other in that positive peer influence in terms of nutrition as well, right? Step 2, right? So 28%, we talked about percentages this morning, and that was great. 28% is not a good number for us. It's really the most recent NFPA needs assessment survey results that tell us how many departments that participated in that survey across the country actually even have any semblance of a health and wellness program initially, right? So if we want to maybe look at the 1%, maybe we should share some information that the previous assessment survey that was done several years ago, they were at 27%. So I guess if we're trying to increase by 1%, maybe we've done that in this regard. But frankly, to me, that number is embarrassing, and it's a shame that we still, with everything that we know from all of our research and the data collection and the thought leadership that we have in our industry, that we're still at that staggeringly low number in terms of fire departments that even place wellness as a priority, right? There are a lot of different reasons for this, and we could go on for hours just on this topic alone. Departmental norms and social culture, right? Work rules and obligations, how management supports or doesn't support health and wellness, finance, budgeting, all of these things can come into play in one form or another depending on what type of a department you work in. And so what we really need to do is diagnose what is the issue in our department or issues in our department, and then develop a plan to overcome those issues, and then, like we've been talking about all morning, then actually do something about it, right? It's not good enough for me to just stand up here and talk about all this stuff if things don't actually change and people don't actually do something about it. Ultimately, for us, it comes down to just priorities, right? We prioritize in the fire service. Do we not prioritize the maintenance of our equipment and our apparatus? Do we not spend tens of thousands of dollars a year on preventative maintenance budgets for our apparatus and our equipment? Why do we do that? It's not really a trick question. Why would we do something like that? You get more life out of it. You take care of it. It breaks down less, and you extend the longevity of that said equipment, right? Why are we not doing the same thing for our most important assets in the fire service? And that's all of you sitting out there, right? So it really comes down to priorities for a lot of us. It does on a personal level as well as on an organizational level. We know, and this number probably is even higher now, it's probably more like $2 to $5 in cost savings. Just as an example, the WFI program can realize if it's about money and that's what you're worried about, then you're going to save money when you invest in firefighter health and wellness. It's that simple. They've done all the research for us. It's just a matter of implementing it, right? So the argument against it is fleeting at best, right? You know, 28% decrease in lost work days concurrent with a 23% reduction in costs for workers' comp claims alone is quoted out of the 4th edition of that program. So there's no really good reason why not to do this, right? So step 3, again, we're moving kind of quickly so we can keep on track here, but this is an important one I want to stop on just for a couple of seconds. Mandating annual medical evaluations per NFPA 1582. This this is something that really, if anybody's going to want to implement a health and wellness program, like we don't want you to go out and buy fitness equipment without training the folks on how to use it, right? That's the cart before the horse. But if we don't have any semblance of a health and wellness program in our fire department, then this is really the most basic thing that we need to do first, right? This up here is just an example from my friends at LifeScan, and I know many of you are more than aware of the good work that they do. We can see, again, just on a cost basis, we can see what it costs, the cost of lack of early detection, if you will, when it comes to certain cancers, right? How much does it cost to treat a late-stage cancer, which ultimately may end up in a fatality anyway, and versus how much it may cost to treat something that's been detected early, right, and is treatable and hopefully curable, right? And I can stand here and tell you that, thankfully, it was nothing more than a scare, but this exact program, I was a personal, example of a scare a couple of years ago as a result of some of the blood work that was done, and I had to go through a bunch of tests and, procedures, and thankfully, I'm okay, but would I have even known that if I wasn't engaged in doing something like this? No, I wouldn't have, and so many of us don't, right? So there should be no fear with that, and it really, really, really is important that we drive that message home that we need to get people, the early detection is critical, and not to mention the fact that, if we talk about cancer presumption laws and the whole baseline of good health, right? How important is it for your new firefighters as you bring them into the service to establish a baseline of good health, right? And the best way to do that is to engage in an annual physical and document that information so that you can show by the data collection that if, God forbid, something ever happens to that person and they are diagnosed with cancer, that when they came on the job that they were cancer-free and they were in good health. And this is the way to do it. And if you can't afford to do it, you can go Google or search the Emergency Roadmap to Health and Wellness, and there's a document that you can literally print out for free, and you can take it to your own doctor and give that to your own doctor, and it will basically outline the components of NFPA 1582 for you, and have them do a physical for you that's meant for a firefighter, not for an accountant. Okay, it's really, really important that we take better care of ourselves in this regard. And once again, cost is not a barrier to this. You just have to take action. These are not in any particular order, I should say, but number 4 here, step 4, mandate fitness evaluations, right? We have NFPA 1583. We have documented fitness benchmarks that we should be mandating, right? Now, should we be doing that before we actually implement a health and wellness program? No, we shouldn't. We should take it step by step, right? So the physicals, that's step 1. Education, step 2. Trying to get folks, the preliminary stuff out of the way before we move on to the more complicated stuff. The fitness evaluations are really nothing more than a personal benchmark for you to see where you're at, what you're good at, and what you maybe need to improve on a little bit. And once again, it's just another way of documenting a baseline for you as a person, not even as a firefighter, for you as a person, as to what your capabilities are. We know that we are in a job of high performance. We know that everybody out there depends on us to do the things that we need to do, and it's not an easy job. So we need to pay attention to how well we can do that, and that's just the nuts and bolts of it. That's the sad truth about it in some people's minds, right? So things like body composition, mobility, and flexibility. Why would we need to be mobile and flexible? I mean, we only just wear like very constricting turnout gear, right? We contort our bodies into crazy shapes and forms and do all these things while we're working vigorously, right? Do you think that increased flexibility and mobility would then also reduce injury, or potential for injury as well, and reduce recovery time if you do get injured? Of course, right? Speed, power, aerobic capacity, muscular strength and endurance, these are all things that we should be paying attention to in the profession that we chose. Once we get past the step 4, we can actually start to work into a program where we actually do an annual assessment of our folks in your own department, right? And this, again, does not have to be anything overly difficult, but it's yet another layer, if you will, in a health and wellness program that we can add that can keep everybody on track, right? It's kind of akin to going to a training session to become fit enough to pass the candidate physical agility test, and then going to the recruit academy, and hopefully you're doing some of that stuff in the recruit academy as well. But then going to the fire station after you finish your rookie school, and then you go there, and then there's no formal program at all whatsoever. And all that you did was you prepared yourself at a baseline. I'm going to say a minimum. Minimum is not far above incompetent in the fire service, okay? Gut check, right? So you prepared yourself to a minimal level to pass the test to get on the job. And now you're going to go into the fire service and not do anything more about it. You're going to regress, right? So we need to hold everybody accountable, and whether you make it mandatory, whether you make it voluntary or whatever, that's an individual department decision, of course. What elements do you include in it? This is an example: hose carries, attack hose stretch, ground ladder carry and raise, forcible entry. Those kinds of things, do they sound familiar to anybody out here that may be a firefighter? Do you think that those are kinds of things or basic things that, according to the NFPA standards for firefighter, that you're required to be able to do? I say yes. Okay, that's the answer, yes, in case you didn't know. These are the most very basic things that we do as firefighters, right? So why shouldn't we ought to be able to perform them after we get on the job, not just to get on the job? If your department does not have a committee, if you will, a work group that actually is dedicated to the progress of health and wellness, then this is something that we really need to get you involved in, right? Fitness and wellness requires buy-in from all levels, from the most rookie firefighter to the fire chief and everybody in between. And to get the best buy-in, in my estimation, you have to include everybody. People want to feel valued and want to feel like their opinions are important, right? So how do we do that? We create a committee or a work group that is dedicated. Maybe these people across the department are what we would consider, health and wellness champions in your department. They're the most enthusiastic of the bunch in terms of their interest in this particular topic, right? Whatever it may be, we need to have representation from the rank and file all the way up through the chief level, okay? And what does this committee do? What does this group do? Lots of stuff, right? All kinds of things, like making sure that the standards, the NFPA 1582, 83, 84, all those standards that we're following, that as they're updated, we make sure that we update with them, right? We make sure that we're paying attention to the behavioral health aspects of the firefighters that are on the job. Adding a behavioral health assessment to the NFPA physical is absolutely a great idea. It's something that we recently did at a department I was with, where we would do individual behavioral health assessments prior to our actual NFPA physicals, and then that confidential information was transferred to the practitioners at LifeScan, in my case, and you can go in there, and part of your physical was to have just a conversation with that person, one-on-one, confidential, private, and assess your mental state as well, right? So we need to do those things. This is the kind of stuff that these kinds of groups really should be tasked with. Research and purchasing of fitness equipment even, making sure the equipment is taken care of, training, development, delivery of classes. All of these things to keep the ball rolling and continue to create that culture of fitness, if you will. Okay, furnishing firefighters with the actual functional fitness equipment that they need in order to be able to do what you're asking them to do. Now, lucky for us, we have engines and ladders and other apparatus in the station that if we had more time, I could show you a million reasons why you don't need much else, because you have all that equipment on your fire truck anyway. So not having a gym in your fire station is not really an excuse, okay? We can use and safely and effectively use the implements that we use on the fire ground to train with for higher performance and fitness, right? So just a couple examples we have up here, just whether it's on the fire truck or with your fire hose in your station, or using ladders to work out at the station. All of these are viable examples of how we can be better performers and also become more proficient with our equipment at the same time. Okay, so while we would like you to have a gym with all the necessary equipment in it, it's not an excuse not to, because you work in a fire station with a bunch of equipment all over the place that you already use. Okay, 5 minutes. I only have 5 minutes. So we did actually, and if anybody wants this sidebar, you know, we came up with and researched an exhaustive list of what we would consider some of the most important functional fitness equipment if you're looking to outfit a gym, not including the Jacobs ladders and the big machines, but all of this other stuff that we came up with. You could very easily equip a nice gym for under $5,000 with things like bars, kettlebells, and the like. So it's not that difficult to accomplish. Again, if we go back to that other step of creating that sort of committee to do the work, this is the kind of stuff that we can get out of it, right? So providing fitness and training and education, that can come in a number of ways. I've already had some discussions with some folks here prior to coming up here about, you know, every department is different. Do you have peer fitness trainers? Would you like to have peer fitness trainers? Would you like to have trainers in-house in your department on your shifts that can basically have a scope of practice that's specific to the firefighters, right, in your department? That's a really great way to do it, but it's not the only way to do it. You can use outside help as well. Local personal trainers in your community. It really depends on what level of department you are, whether you're a career, volunteer. The communities that you work in always want to work with the fire departments, I can tell you that. They love to work with the fire departments, and if you just ask them, you might be surprised at some of the resources that they can provide. So you can think about things like internalizing the training process and the certification process, and you can also reach out to outside external folks to also bring in other things as well. We're not just talking about working out. Why not bring in, you know, a nutrition specialist to teach your firefighters how to cook healthy in the station, right? You know, rehab specialists are important. Even yoga, you know, we call it FOGA, we call it functional yogas, to sort of defray some of that stigma that may be attached with yoga, but bring in somebody to do some yoga with you once a week, or, you know, however many shifts you have given a month, right? There's lots of different ways that you can do this, that you can implement external resources as well, not just internal. Step 9 and 10 are going to go really quick, because then I want to stop and talk a little bit more about how all of this relates to what we're doing here today. But allocating time and space for on-duty personnel to exercise, it sounds simple, but I still come across departments that want you to be fit. They want you to be healthy. They want you to be in shape. But no, you cannot. You need to do that on your own time, right? And to me, whether I was a firefighter from the rookie all the way up to a fire chief, I never understood that. And I think it's so important that our fire departments are providing the time and the space that we need to make sure that we stay in the proper shape to do our jobs, right? So that's a step that perhaps maybe some of you may struggle with. Maybe others have it. But I can tell you that I went back going back to a department several years ago that we were trying to implement a mandatory fitness program. And what I did was I asked the personnel. I know, funny, right? You know, if you actually ask them what they're concerned about, they might actually tell you instead of just assuming. But we did a quick anonymous survey, and it was the simplest thing in the world, because they were all on board with doing mandatory fitness. The only thing they wanted was to be able to have the time on duty to do it as part of their shift. And that was the easiest thing in the world for me to say, check, you got it. And now you're going to have an hour per shift on your 24-hour shift where you will do something, right? So, but if you don't ask them, if you don't include them in that process, then you might be assuming that you know what they're thinking, and you probably don't. And everything, everything, there's a policy for everything. There's a policy for everybody that's ever made a mistake in your fire department. They probably named them, the Joe policy, the Firefighter Smith policy, or whatever. But really, we need to put this stuff in writing, right? So there's ways to do that step by step. It could be singular policies on medical evaluations, fitness, the annual testing, whatever, what have you. But we should really get to a point where our fitness policies and procedures are documented, just like everything else that we do. It could be a guideline. It doesn't have to be a procedure. But we need to get everything in writing, okay? And that way, everybody's on the same page, and you have reference documents. And then that committee goes back, and they make sure that your policies and procedures remain in line with any new iterations of the NFPA standards that we follow, right? So you establish the policies and procedures, and then you maintain them, right? The last thing I want to talk about in the quick flying through of these steps is incentivization. And I'm going to say that I'll stand before you saying that I don't believe anybody ought to have to be incentivized to take care of themselves, right? So there's quite a conflict there internally with that statement. But do I think that we can reward firefighters for achieving certain benchmarks? I think that's what the difference is. So again, do I think I have to pay you, for example, to exercise while you're, or to keep yourself in good shape? Should I have to pay you to do that? I don't think from a sort of philosophical standpoint that I should have to do that for any of us. I think, quite frankly, that when you decide to join the fire service, you're going to be held to a higher standard. You should hold yourself to a higher standard. There's too many people that depend on us for you to look at it any other way. But I do think that we can encourage firefighters that are already engaged in fitness programs to achieve even higher levels of fitness. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's plenty of departments across the country that already do this and have bona fide established programs, and then offer additional incentives for the firefighters to achieve higher levels, right? Firefighters like food, they like free food. They also like money, and they like time off, right? We're a pretty simple group, so it's not that difficult. So this is an example, right? This is one particular department that attaches a monetary value to actually achieving certain levels of fitness that you can probably find in standards somewhere, hint, hint, right? So aerobic capacity of 12 METs, that's kind of the baseline number that we shoot for. If you can show that you can achieve that capacity, it's $700 for this particular department, and so on, leg presses. But this is just one example. This isn't to get you to do it. This is to encourage you to continue to do it and to do it at a higher level. Here's an example of a fire department that offers comp time for achievement of certain fitness standards. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that, and I don't see it as, these folks, they still need to meet other standards, whether they do this or not. That's their choice. So that's the difference between incentivizing somebody to actually take care of themselves and rewarding somebody for attaining higher levels of fitness, if you will. This is always a good example, too. If you really want to cut down to it, I mean, it's a good way to help avoid death, right? So generally speaking, why we're here today is we're all talking about reasons why we want to not only be high performers in our job, but we also want to create that career and retirement longevity. And the longevity portion of it is something that we probably don't talk enough about. I'm sure many of us know someone that had a long and glorious career in the fire service, 20, 25, 30 or more years. Some of us that started out volunteering could probably go into the 40 or 50-year range, right? And then when it's time to be done, when it's time to enjoy the fruits of your labor, when it's time to enjoy your families, your kids, your grandkids, whatever it may be, then you get sick and die, Well, that sucks, right? Why do you want to put all this time and effort into this great occupation, this profession, this calling that we like to talk about? And then once you're done at 55, 58, 60 years old, whatever the age is, once you're done, all you're dealing with for the rest of your life is health problems because you didn't take care of yourself along the way, right? So it really, really is that important that we talk about it, not in terms of just performance, which that's what most of us, that's kind of the fun quotient. We want to be the best firefighter on the fire ground, but we really need to think about what happens to us and our families when we're gone and how much time we have after the job's done, all right? So tie all this together with why we're really actually here today, and we can show you that exercise fights cancer, right? We know there's research out there. Why are we talking all about fitness? What does that have to do with cancer and cancer prevention, right? We know that, just as it says here, it has a marked effect on several functions of the human body that influence cancer risk. So your attitude towards fitness, along with nutrition, hydration, the rest, your alcohol consumption or lack thereof, all of these play a role, right? We know that there's research out there that shows us that exercise is linked to reducing risk in 13 different cancers, right? How do we do that, right? Some really cool stuff here, especially that last one I'm sure everybody's thrilled to hear about, right? Depending on the type of cancer diagnosis or risk, I should say, exercise can help fight it by whether it's a reduction in weight or maintaining a healthy weight, boosting your immune system, lowering hormone production, which is big in like breast cancer and those kinds of things, reducing inflammation and increasing your bowel efficiency. Who didn't know that before today, right? That could possibly reduce your risk of that kind of a cancer. So we know from the studies out there that this stuff works. Okay, it's just a matter of getting out there and doing it. And if you're not doing it today and you can start today, then start today. If tomorrow is a better day to start, then start tomorrow, right? The great thing about fitness and health and wellness is the best day to start making an improvement in your own personal condition is today. It's always today. Today it's today, tomorrow it will be today, the next day it will be today. You can do something even if you're not doing anything, and it will have an almost immediate positive effect on you. So it's not a lost cause if you haven't exercised in 15 years, or if you've eaten nothing but junk for 15 years. If you start today and make a small change, you're doing something to improve yourself, right? Here's just some examples of bladder cancer, breast cancer, all of these cancers that are listed up here. You have a reduced risk by regular exercise for any one of those reasons, depending on the type of cancer diagnosis that we just showed. It was talked about up here already, so I don't have to go into it in too much detail, but the importance of hydration, it cannot be overstated, and not just from the things that were talked about today, but all the way down to the cellular oxygenation level, right? It's a purging of toxins that occurs, right? This is why it's so important to achieve euhydration, really, that perfect state of hydration and maintain it, and then make sure that your rehab policies and procedures are on point, because it's one of the ways that you're going to fight that and purge that stuff that you absorb when you're out on the fire ground, all those carcinogens, right? So boosting your immune system, reduction in chances of obesity or diabetes, it's a purge on the fire ground as well, right? All the way down to the cellular level. Unfortunately, as was said earlier, we cannot just, as it was said, we can't save up all of our drinks for Saturday and drink them all at once. That's not healthy. Unfortunately for us, we can't just drink 15 cups of water when we first get up in the morning and say we're hydrated, right? Our bodies don't work like that. So the idea being that we need to continually hydrate throughout the day. Our friend Dr. Gavin Horn did a study not too long back where he demonstrated that oncoming firefighters in a particular department were either excessively or, I can't remember the two categories, but 91% of the firefighters that were coming on duty in a given shift were already dehydrated when they walked in the door. And we can't afford to do that. We can't recover from that like an office worker can, for example, right? When we go out to a fire and we're losing 2 liters or more of fluid in an hour, we can't recover from that by drinking a couple bottles of water. So if you're not even coming to work hydrated, then you're already well behind the 8 ball, if you will, right? And even during treatment. The worst case scenario is you are diagnosed with a cancer. We also know that exercise produces these defender immune cells that help you fight that and can help that cause as well. No different than somebody that's in better physical condition. I can't guarantee you're not going to have a heart attack, for example, no matter what your condition is. But I can tell you, and doctors can tell you, that if you are in better physical condition, that your body will be better able to withstand the trauma of a heart attack than somebody that's deconditioned. And they'll tell you that and put their life on it. So all of these things are important for us to remember. And not just us here today. I think in a lot of cases when we have health and wellness conferences, we all come and we preach to the choir. I mean, we all, I think, understand this. I think what the important thing is to take this message and take it back to our respective departments and to our personnel and really drive the point home that we really care about you and we want you to be okay. Not just now, but for the rest of your life. Here's another example of mental and active surveillance for prostate cancer. That was my scare, right? We'll talk about what do we do? HIIT, high-intensity interval training, is really probably, if you're especially pressed for time, one of the easiest ways to accomplish a lot, right? So 3 times a week, lower PSA, slower cell growth compared to non-HIIT participants. You can do 3 30-minute sessions of vigorous exercise a week and accomplish way more in those little sessions than you could in double or triple moderate exercise sessions. Okay, and we know that the prostate cancer is a real concern for the males in the fire service. Hopefully you've heard, if you've not heard of 40 Plus Fire, you all know Billy Goldfeder, and he's put that out there. He's saying, hey, we need to pay better attention to this. The PSA that I had was elevated. Thankfully, it was a scare more than anything. He endured that process. And he's recommending now that a lot of us, that if you're a male and you're a firefighter and you're 40 years old or older, you should get your PSA checked. And it's the simplest thing that you can do. It's just part of a blood test. It doesn't hurt. There's no invasion of privacy or anything like that. It's just really important that we drive that message home. There's so many simple things that we can do to help improve our odds, right? So the what, why, and how of it, and I'll wrap this up. The high-intensity interval training, here's some of the benefits of it. And people will ask, well, how much exercise do I have to do? I would say that even at the most deconditioned person in the room is doing 20 to 30 minutes of exercise, moderate to vigorous exercise 3 times a week, you're benefiting yourself. The key here is what you can commit to realistically. And if you say you're going to work out 6 times a week, but you really can't, you're going to fail. If you say that you can work out 3 times a week and you're going to dedicate it to 30-minute sessions of high-intensity training 3 times a week, and you do that, then you're doing something good for yourself. So we have to be realistic in our goals. But this is going to get you the most bang for your buck in terms of actual what you're going to get out of it. So I know that I kind of flew through some of that stuff. The program actually really can go very in-depth if anybody's interested in hearing more about it. That we really get into the nuts and bolts of each of those steps. And like I said, it goes 15 or 16 steps now. At the National Volunteer Fire Council Summit, we'll be doing the presentation is 15 steps and not 11. So I'm happy to take any questions, but I know you're probably all ready for a break now too. So either way, it doesn't matter. But thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of throw this out there as part of our overall approach to improving health and wellness.